Welcome to a very special edition of Give An Ovation, the restaurant guest experience podcast, where I talk to industry experts to get their strategies and tactics you can use to create a five-star guest experience. This podcast is sponsored by Ovation, a two-question guest feedback platform that gives multi-unit restaurants all the answers without annoying their guests with all the questions. Learn more at ovationup.com. And today's a very special podcast because I don't just have one guest. I don't have two guests. I have five guests today. And this is a podcast celebrating our 250th episode.
Wow.
Isn't that incredible? And each of you have been on the podcast, and your episodes have done so well. And we've become such good friends over the years. And each of you have had such a profound influence on me, on Ovation, on the podcast, on the industry, that I'm just honored to be here with you. So quick lineup of who we got. Kelly MacPherson, Chief Technology and Supply Chain Officer at Union Square Hospitality Group. Jeff Alexander, the President and CEO at Wow Bao. CJ Ramirez, the EVP of Marketing at Dog Haus and the Absolute Brands. David, the Rev Ciancio, Marketing Executive, Consultant, Co-founder and CMO of Handcraft, Burgers and Brew. And Shawn, Walchef, the owner of Cali Barbecue and Cali Barbecue Media. And wow, the fact that I get to host a podcast with these folks, with your caliber of people, is just amazing to me. So thank you all for being here.
Stoked.
Yeah.
Congratulations
Thanks for the invite. Always a pleasure.
I honestly, I'm not sure if a more powerful lineup has been produced at any event or any trade show. And trust me, I've been to them all. So let's start it off. Kelly, let's have you kick off this podcast.
Hello.
What do you think is the most important aspect of guest experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really about how you make guests feel, right? And do they feel cared about as well as cared for? And it's really an emotional connection, right? And I think that's the most important part of it. And, you know, we talk a lot about the hospitality versus service, right? Service being, and you know, to somewhat quote Danny, not exact, but, you know, services is really the technical aspect. And, you know, we strive for inline hospitality, which again is really about how you make people feel.
I love that, because as we're looking into the future, someone just asked me today, they said, what should restaurants expect in 2024? And I said, it's always been a fight for the mind and the belly of the guest. I go, from here on out, it's going to be a fight for the heart of the guest, right? Because those guests are just so important. I think how you make them feel is just the heart of everything that you've done in your career, that Danny's done in his career. I think that is so spot on. And CJ, obviously you're coming from a unique perspective where you not only have a bunch of physical locations, and by the way, I got to hang out with Michael 2 nights ago.
Yeah, our new CEO, not so new anymore, maybe while this is airing, but yeah, Michael's awesome.
Yeah, so we sat next to each other at dinner in LA 2 days ago, and I got to try I got to eat the cowboy hot dog, which
isn't that your favorite? You get that up at our Sandy location.
I can't, every time I go, I have to get that because it's so amazing.
Yeah.
But besides having food that is just dream worthy, what are some tactics that you're using across the digital brands? Because with Absolute, you have more than just Dog Haus, a bunch of digital brands, and the physical locations.
Well, I mean, little piggyback off of what, you know, Kelly is saying, because we have all these virtual restaurant brands during COVID, I'm not going to talk about it anymore other than this, everyone was all in the digital. And so we were all digital. And we've been fighting to come back from all digital into, you know, inside our 4 walls. So if we look at our business this year, we're about 50-50. And so it is time to lean into that service to bring people inside the 4 walls. And we're focusing on everything from technology integration, ambiance and comfort, guest feedback loops, and kids, right? If you focus on those things, I think it's really going to give you insights as to what the customers want to experience, and keep bringing them in for more. I mean, of course, I'm not talking about food because I think our food is amazing and everyone here looks like we had it and has had a positive experience with it. But it's really about keeping your customer inside the 4 walls, getting them to have that extra beverage, right? And increase that in-store sales number. So for us, those are the things that we're focusing on. And of course, they break down into the minutia, and I could talk about that on a podcast all on my own. But I think everyone would have something to say about those categories.
I love the idea of bringing people back in. So of our panelists here, how many people are focused on bringing people into the four walls versus like more just continuing to push digital? I mean, obviously, Geoff, you've got an interesting perspective there, but and I'll get to you. I want you to answer this question last. I want to piggyback into another one. But Shawn, Rev, Kelly, are you guys focused on pushing digital or getting people into the four walls?
Well, I mean, we're in a unique position. 99% of our transactions are digital. So I'm not sure how much more I could push.
There is, though, the opportunity, Rev, that you and I have talked about for countless hours, as well as texting back and forth. And that's digital doesn't only mean outside of the four walls, right? You've got to bring that experience inside your four walls. You've got to have an ordering environment that's easy to use. And for the first order, maybe when someone comes in, or maybe that second order, right? Maybe they're out having fun inside your restaurant or talking to someone and they don't want to break that conversation. But we know looking down at our phone does not break a conversation anymore. And so you can re-up on a beverage or even, get something to share.
Yeah, so we are actually upgrading our four walls digital experience. So that's kind of answering both, but we had sort of like kiosks that check the boxes, let's say, since we opened, and now that we've hit our 2-year anniversary, we're actually upgrading our kiosks to have smart kiosks. So we're still focused on digital, but we're also going to make the in-store digital experience better.
So you're telling me that you're leveling up your kiosk to the level of your French fries?
I'm not sure anything's going to exceed those, but
Okay.
We're getting closer for sure.
Best French fries in the world.
Amazing.
Thank you.
I mean, I think it also depends on the restaurant type and which vertical you fall in, right? And so for us, we've never leaned into digital in some of our Michelin star restaurants or some of our fine dining restaurants, where it's very different to fine casual or, fast casual and say like a daily provisions. And so for us, it's continuing of, how do you take technology and enable that guest experience in a very invisible and not invasive way, right? So a big focus of ours is on data and personalization, and how do I create moments and memories through that dining experience that still continues to feed that human connection without putting like technology front and center of that guest experience.
By the way, where daily
Kelly,
provision,
you know what? Oh, go ahead, Rev. Sorry.
do you know where daily provisions is? Literally below this window.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm thinking Kelly's absolutely right. I've been getting a ton of requests from our franchisees for kids coloring books. And so how far away from technology can you get, right? Let's get some crayons and let's get some fun things to color, and can they be seasonal? We've been focusing on the alphas, but certainly there's a generation below them. And if you keep them busy while their parents are having a good time, I think that's a great win.
Yeah. And what about you, Shawn? Because I've been to your location a couple times. You have a great spot there. It's a nice big location. It's got such a character to it. And then as you're doing these outposts around San Diego and surrounding areas, are you trying to get more people into the heart of the restaurant, or are you trying to increase your digital?
It's interesting. We've gone from, I've always say that we, for 15 years, have built Cali Barbecue, and now we're building also Cali Barbecue Media. And through the pandemic, we didn't pivot. We went all in on digital, and we followed the ghost kitchen craze, and we opened up 2 cloud kitchen locations. Ghost kitchen, we called friendly ghost kitchen locations, and we've closed those locations. So now we only have 1 ghost kitchen location at a Maker location. So Maker Kitchens, Bennett, he has been a great partner. And I think, part of the problem with our thesis was that we expected the landlord and the other tenants to also help with collaboration. Some of the locations were difficult locations. So part of the reason why we believe in media and storytelling the way that we do is you've been to Spring Valley. It's an off the beaten path location. So we've leaned heavily into marketing ourselves, branding ourselves, now telling other people's stories. And now when we go to these other locations, we can't do it by ourselves. We need help. And I think that's part of the problem that I've always had with ghost kitchens. Terrible brand, terrible name. And to your question, are we focused? We're focused on always leveraging technology to get more barbecue to more people. Slow food fast. The problem with barbecue is it takes time and it takes expertise. And we've mastered the craft of making great barbecue. And now we can't discriminate how people get that. So, obviously we're leaning more into things like what Geoff's doing. I mean, I love the idea of figuring out a way to get a barbecue vending machine in a high volume location. How we do that logistically, that's yet to be determined. But airport locations, stadium locations, our stadium at Snapdragon Stadium, we have 2 stands there that do absolutely phenomenal. We cook the barbecue at our restaurant, we deliver it there. Wholesale opportunities are really exciting for us. But to answer the ghost kitchen question, it's tough. It's tough to see, Atul Sood, who's a close friend of mine and many of your friends, to see them out of the ghost kitchen game. I love the idea of Cali barbecue being in a Kroger. I love that, opportunity to be with where there's actually existing foot traffic, but they've moved away. They're pivoting more into software. And I think all of us here, here on this show, we all have seen what are playing out. And, I'd love to hear what Geoff sees in the ghost kitchen space, because that's the virtual playground. This is the king of virtual playgrounds. We have Doghouse too, which like we've got two of the best in class, if not the Hall of Famers. So I'd love to hear what Geoff has to say.
Yes, because Geoff, I mean, you've got airport locations. I've tried Wow Bao delivered. I've tried it at airports. You've got physical, regular walk-in, sit-down locations. What are you seeing? Like, where are you driving people?
Yeah, look, just to go back to the question you had earlier about the focus and what's happening. I think there's 2 parts to hospitality, and I appreciate what everyone else has said already. But whether you're eating food in your restaurant or at your home or in the airport, you still want to be hospitable. You still want to convey that you're thankful that they came in, that the experience is good. And to quote what Kelly said, you want to create a memory. But I think there's another piece to the hospitality that no one's talked about. You have to create hospitality for your employees also. You got to create a great work environment. You got to create action and fun and high energy, because then that translates to the consumer. And if we're feeding, 4,000 people a day, mainly off premise, we want them to feel good that they chose us, not just that they had great food, but the packaging held up and that they could reheat the food if they needed to, or keep it fresh in the refrigerator, or there was some kind of a note in there that, if it's obviously an order for a single diner, that you treated them a little differently than you treated that to-go meal for 4 people, right? With notes or surprise and delights or whatever it may be. I just think there's so many ways to be hospitable. And that is, to me, the biggest opportunity in 2024, pre-pandemic. And I know CJ already said we're only going to say COVID once, so there's the second. It's a drinking game now, right? But pre-pandemic, we were in the hospitality business, and then during the pandemic, we became the food industry. And it's so important to get back to being the hospitality industry. And I think that is what I'm hearing from the other people on the screen here, and from obviously what your company does, Zack, is it's all about bringing back that feeling of thank you for coming in. How can I make your evening better? How can I get you to come back? And how can I get you to have a memory to share with other people? And I love the idea that parents are doing coloring books right now. It's probably for their 4th kid because they ruined the first 3 by giving them, the cell phone. And so they want the kid to, have a conversation. But there is this feeling of community that we lost, for a number of years because we couldn't get out there and socialize. And we commiserate around food. We celebrate around food, right? Food touches all of our lives in so many ways. We need to bring back that storytelling that Shawn was talking about, that memory making that's happening, and the camaraderie and fun, just like we're having on this call.
I think what you said is so important, because when you look at it, and when we build our tech strategy, we always start with the employee experience, right? And then we lead into the guest experience. And for that, that's first and foremost the most important part for us. I mean, obviously it's all important, but we always start with our staff first in our virtuous cycle.
Sure. And Kelly, it's because number one, they're guests also, right? We like all of our employees to be lifers with us, but we know they're only going to spend a certain amount of time with us. They're free marketing to get out there about it. And if they're happy and it's working, they're enjoying it, it's only going to translate that much better to the consumer. So absolutely, you're spot on that's where the focus needs to start.
And I'm so glad, by the way, I just want to point out, I'm so glad that I said what was my opinion, what was coming in 2024. So Geoff, now you can't say I ripped you off and I copied you, because
I can say it.
You can still say it.
Yeah, that's
You had
true.
a prep call. You stole it then.
But I totally think that's
didn't.
right. And at the end of the day, I mean, we're all just stealing Danny's quotes, right? Because I mean, in his book Setting the Table, he said hospitality is a dialogue, right? And having that connection, that conversation, I think is something that's so important. And and looking at how we bring people in, I think it's so important to think about the employees. But when we're looking at our guests, and Rev, I want to go to you on this one, as you're the the CMO consultant. You work with a lot of restaurant brands, a lot of technology brands. When you're looking at like the restaurant, is it better? Should restaurants be focusing on acquisition or retention?
And I sorry. First of all, I appreciate you saying nice things about me. Thank you. But I also appreciate you throwing me this ball. I think that the biggest opportunity in terms of revenue growth from a restaurant's perspective is retention.
Whoa, but Rev, 97% of my customers are coming back to my restaurant. Everybody loves my food. I'm telling you, Rev, I don't have a retention problem.
The biggest problem in the industry, at least from my perspective, is called a one-timer. And 70% of restaurant guests only dine at a restaurant one time. Now, we're never going to get to 100%, but if we get to 65 or 60 or 50, God bless. And I think that restaurants forget about some of the really easy to move retention tactics, like saying thank you. You know what I mean? And I go to a lot of these conferences, not as many as you, clearly. And I sit in front of these marketing panels and they're like, oh, loyalty program this and extra points that. And how do I do this discount? I'm like, how about you just set up something in your CRM that on a guest 5th visit, you say, thanks for coming 5 times. Like just the simple nod of appreciation. I think that retention tactics are way easier than we make them. And a lot of them just come around for being a feeling of being grateful. Like, thank you, guest, for being here. And if we say thank you in more creative, interesting, and frequent ways, I think that will increase retention. So I'm focused on retention.
And one data point to add to that is I'll let on this podcast, this is going to be like our first like public announcement of like some of this data that we're uncovering. But I think the other side of that is saying thank you and saying I'm sorry. We have found that an unhappy guest, so the average guest has 30% likelihood of coming back. If a guest is upset, they had a negative experience, they have a 13% likelihood of coming back. Now, if you respond to that guest and you say, Kelly, this is Zack here at Zack Shack. I'm so sorry we messed up your order. We'll do what we can to make it right and would love to invite you back in. You don't even have to give them something, but if you just say sorry and use their name, that retention rate goes from 13% to 68%. Not only that, but that guest is going to spend $5 more per visit. They come in 4.5 times more often than the average guest, and they're 5 times more likely to leave a 5-star review. So in terms of like, and they always say that offense is the best defense, right? Or is it defense is the best offense? Whatever the case, my dad played lineman, so I think offense is the best defense. But
and I wouldn't argue with your father.
Yeah, right.
he also likes our fries and left us a 5-star review on Google about it.
I think that's his only 5-star review he's ever left, because he's like, no, what's this Google thing? But anyway, but I think that, when you are getting people coming back in, that becomes a marketing engine, right? That becomes an acquisition engine. And so I totally agree with you, Rev, not just because that's what Ovation does, but because I think it's really powerful. The data shows that retention, when you focus on that, I love the thank you part. I hadn't really thought about that. When you focus on the thank you and the I'm sorry, there's really powerful things that can grow businesses.
And I don't want to make this a Pat Handcraft Burgers and the Brew on the back show, but we don't think of ourselves as a hamburger shop. We think of ourselves as a thank you machine. And so if you go look at any social media post we've ever put out there, they all end with thank you. If you go read any email we've ever sent, it says thank you. The most popular, frequent said words in our dining room are thank you. And so we really focus on the gratitude piece of it. And by the way, you prevent having to say sorry a lot more often, more times you say thank you. So offense, better defense.
Love that. And Shawn, you had mentioned something before about ghost kitchens. You're like, well, I don't really know. They're kind of like dying there. Bad name, bad brand. Like, will ghost kitchens still be around in 5 years? And if so, like, what will they look like? What's the future of like the non-front door traditional restaurant?
I love what Carl and Meredith talk about, because they talk about it not being a ghost kitchen. It's more about delivery. When you think of what Geoff is talking about is how are you consuming the food? It's less of the idea. Most people don't even know what a ghost kitchen is. I mean, I guarantee you, if all of us wrote down on a piece of paper our definition of what a ghost kitchen is, it would all be different. And if we're all the industry insiders, that's kind of a big problem, don't you think?
Yeah.
We got a big problem there. And when I think of how people consume, just in our own case, how do they consume barbecue? We need to find easier ways to allow them to purchase barbecue, not just, from a catering perspective of like when somebody comes to our website, I need to make it as easy as possible for them to order for a group of 25 people for their office. Well, what does that look like? I need to make that digital experience. Well, I need 5 pounds of brisket. How much does 5 pounds serve? All of those barbecue math that I have to do, my team has to do, my catering manager has to do, we need to make that easy on the digital side. And if I make it easy on the digital side, then I have more barbecues going out to the biotech companies here in San Diego, to the Qualcomms of the world. That's how I grow my business. And catering is a much more profitable side of my business. Like, is that ghost kitchens? Well, it's not really ghost kitchens, but it's delivery, right? It's somebody consuming Cali barbecue within my local area, and I can produce as much barbecue as I can out of my master smokehouse. Well, I want to get more barbecue on the catering side. I want to get more barbecue that can get warmed up. I'm looking at what Pizza HQ does, and they go and they partner with these, trampoline parks. These trampoline parks, I have a 6-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl. Guess what? Every Saturday and every Sunday, I'm at a bounce house or a trampoline park. And they have an active audience of thousands of consumers that have bad pizza, and that's pretty much it. Chips is their option. If I can figure out a way that I'm smoking slow smoke brisket and pulled pork, and I can partner with these trampoline parks and then deliver on a daily basis how you can sell sliders to the kids for all the barbecue, like, that's a great way for me to expand my business. Is that ghost kitchen? No, but it's delivery. It's wholesale. It's a way of thinking about my restaurant in a different way.
I
I
need
love
the
that.
number of those bounce houses to start
What's
making calls.
Yeah.
What did you say?
I need the name and number of the bounce houses before
Yeah.
you call them.
Do you not think it's a distinction between ghost kitchens and what I would refer to it as a dark kitchen, where you have an offsite like production facility for catering or offloading some of your delivery, as you said, because now that, restaurants are coming and people are wanting to come back into the restaurants, like, you can still only have so much capacity, right? So if you're running, and this is where you start to run into the bottleneck of being able to fill orders. And so if I can take that, move it out of the 4-wall operation and have it focused specifically on catering and delivery, now my team within the 4 walls can focus on what they need to do. I don't necessarily have to have lines of bikers outside the front of the restaurant creating chaos. And then you just deliver a better experience for all your guests. And so meeting them where they want to kind of interact with you and making it the most frictionless for everybody, staff, as well as the guests. And I think that's how I look at it, in a different lens.
Yeah, so it's less around let's stop worrying. I guess what I'm hearing, Shawn, is like, and team, let's like whatever it's called, let's just talk about how do we increase the capacity and not confine it to the four walls. And so whether it's called a dark kitchen, ghost kitchen, like whatever the case is, it's like let's find other avenues to put our food in people's bellies, you know. And the different modes of delivery, to your point, Shawn, I think that's a really good point. And by the way, I can tell everyone on this call that Kelly, when you talked about a row of bikers outside the restaurant, right? I know exactly what Rev was thinking about, and he was thinking about Pee-wee's Big Adventure and all the bikes falling over. Tell me you weren't thinking about that, Rev.
I don't maintain much of a bucket list, but one of them is one day I'm going to go visit every single location that movie was filmed in as a vacation. So yes.
Okay. I just want to let everyone know that this is the level of love that we have for each other. I knew exactly what Rev was thinking about.
And Zach, sorry, just to throw in there with what Kelly and Shawn was saying, at the end of the day, we all have to evolve. Our businesses need to evolve. Our restaurants need to evolve because our consumers are evolving. They're evolving on their taste. They're evolving on what it is they want. They're evolving on the convenience factor. They're evolving on how they interact with us, right? And whether it's delivery and off-premise or digital sales or, coloring books, it's ways to enhance the guest experience. And you can't treat your diner for the retention of who's been returning into the restaurant for the last 3 months or 3 years, the same as you did when they first came in. They want the experience to be better, but they want the comfort and the memory to stay alive, right? What they don't want to do is they don't want to come back and have everything just be different. That's not evolution, right? That's change. People don't like change. They want to have the memory that they remember, that great food, that great service, that great ambiance, but they want it to be better than they remember it being. And that's behind the scenes. And that's whether you want to get involved in off-premise or vending machines or serving, birthday parties and off-site events, or just creating an environment that says thank you, or creating a way to communicate with the guest afterwards, like your company does, where here's 2 questions, just say yes or no. How do we do? It's evolution. And that is what's so important. And that's what's made everybody on this call not only successful, but the industry successful, right? We're all entrepreneurs. We didn't get in this business just to do the same thing every single day. The only thing we want to do every single day is make sure the guest is happy. Everything else we want to do is we want to improve the food every day. We want to improve the experience every day. We want to improve our employees' benefits and how they interact with us, and just make the guest come back.
And talking about evolution here, Geoff, Web3, this is something that you're one of the very first people to jump on this train.
Rev wants to talk. He's losing his mind on this talk.
So right before our call, I ordered Gregory's, which you can see they have the Ovation, QR code there. But do you know how I ordered it? Via Web3. I used Devour Go to order Gregory's right before we started recording today.
Now go order Devour Go to get Wild Bound delivered. Come on.
Is that in New York City? Can I get Wild Bound? Oh, all right, done.
What's wrong with you?
So when Kelly's getting on tonight in 12 hours, in the middle of the night, I know Kelly's going to pull up her Xbox console and start gaming. And when she does that, is like in the future, is she going to be able to order food from there? Is this a thing? Is it dying? Like, just as an early adopter in this tech, like tell me what your opinion is, Geoff.
I don't believe anything is dying. I think everything has to evolve and businesses have to change. I mean, I'm sure for everybody on this call who has 2 locations, if you open your 3rd location, I'll pretty much promise your 3rd location doesn't look like 1 and 2, right? Your first location looked like this, it worked, you built number 2, but number 3, you said, I want to change it a little bit, right? Maybe you change on number 2. It's constant change and improvement. And does Web3 today look like what Web3 looked like 18 months ago? And is that what it's going to look like in 36 months? Absolutely not. If I had the crystal ball, I would not be on this phone call. I would have won the $7 billion lottery, right? And doing something else. So I can't tell you what's going to happen.
Hey,
What
Geoff, I just want to tell you real quick, if I won the $7 billion lottery, I'd still be on this call with you. So just to let you know, I love you that much.
That's because I'd be paying you. But what I do want to say is, look, do I believe that you can be the kids of today are going to be playing Roblox, or the grownups of today are going to play Roblox and be able to find a way inside that game to interact with the brand and have whatever that is, whether it's an iPad or Wow delivered to them as they're in the game? 150% that is going to happen. Is it going to happen tomorrow? I don't think so. But I do know companies that are talking to Roblox to do stuff like this. Devour Go, who you ordered from, we're a partner with. They want to put one of our vending machines onto their platform, where you can go to the vending machine, you can order as you stay in their platform, and then DoorDash, from one of our 500 plus delivery locations around the country, will deliver the food to you. Technology is going to keep enhancing. I mean, we're foolish to think it's not going to improve, and it is not going to look the same tomorrow as it looks today. It can't. Too many people want to get into the space. The hard part, I think, is that everybody who's influencing it, who's making the change, who's giving the input, none of them are restaurant people, right? So it becomes us have to want to be part of the shiny new object at the cost of hopefully not damaging our brand, disrupting our employees, and creating friction for our guests. That's the struggle when you deal with technology inside the restaurant space, is it's not generally created by restaurant people. So there lies the problem. But Web3, it's gonna be something. I don't know if NFTs are gonna come back. I don't know how it's gonna parlay, but it's gonna be pretty fun when you're playing video games with your headset on, and all of a sudden the doorbell rings, and you stumble over there with your headset on and grab the food and start eating it.
Well, I can't wait for DoorDash to start offering services where they will feed it to you, and so you don't even have to take your hands off the controller. They'll just come
If
into
you
your
have
house.
$7 billion when you win, I'll come feed you. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So
I'll put millions at.
yeah. Well, let's do this. I'd love to wrap up with two final questions, and I'll start with Geoff, and then we'll go around. Two final questions are: one, what would be your most important piece of advice to restaurateurs today? And two, what is a brand not represented in this podcast that is nailing the guest experience? Basically, who deserves an ovation? So your piece of advice and who deserves an ovation.
When you restaurateur or entrepreneur on this who's watching this had one restaurant or one store, you worked it tirelessly every day and night, and you talked to every person that came in the door, and you wanted feedback. We have got to get back on the floor in 2024. There's too many times that I go to restaurants that you can't find a manager because payroll's an issue, so they're too busy expediting the kitchen or working the host stand and not touching the guest. So owners, get back on the floor, get your managers back on the floor, and just talk to people. The second one is who's going to, the easiest question in the world is who do you give an ovation for, who's got great service? It's a complete cop-out, but I always have to go to Apple. I mean, you go in there and ask any question, anybody can help you. They don't rush you. And then you get hit with 17 surveys after the fact. Did we answer it? How can we give it back to you? What is it you need? I mean, I sort of keep them sort of up at the top. And it's not easy for a luxury brand to be at the top of customer service. There are a number of luxury brands that miss all the time because they just think they're the best. So to answer both of them together, just care more. It's the first word in our employee handbook. It's the first word in Lettuce Entertainment's employee handbook is care. Care for each other, care for your guest, care for your employee, and care about what you're doing, your food, service, and so on.
Okay, so going over to you, Shawn, who deserves what advice do you have for restaurants, and who deserves an ovation?
Advice is what my grandfather taught me, and that's stay curious, get involved, and ask for help. Curiosity is the superpower. It's knowing that we don't know anything. And, you know, to Geoff's point, how can we continue to improve and improve on hospitality? But finally, you have to get involved. You know, too much of this stuff is happening too quickly, and we can't expect to have all the answers. And that's why you ask for help. That's why you listen to a show like this. That's why you reach out to leaders that are all available on LinkedIn. Everyone on this call I know is weirdly available to have industry conversations. If you see him at a trade show, stop by and say hello. I mean, what Rev does and Kelly and CJ, like I'm honored to be on this call because of how much you guys give. You give and you give and you give. And if you're listening to this or if you're watching this, don't think that your restaurant doesn't matter. Raise your hand, ask for help. And if you ask for help, you can get the answers that you want. And the ovation, I would say, goes to Taylor Swift. And Spotify. I think on the largest scale possible, we all witnessed what happened in 2023 with her Eras tour, the impact that she made economically for all the restaurants around the concert venues that she was doing. But then when I think of Spotify and my daughter, driving my daughter to daycare, and my son, you know, my daughter's saying, play Taylor Swift, and I'm playing all these songs. And then Spotify personalizes a rap for me. And in that rap, Taylor Swift has a personalized video, which goes to anyone that Taylor Swift is a fan of and that listened to it. But my daughter's sitting there saying, like, Taylor's talking to her. Like, how unbelievable is that? You know, my 4-year-old girl, and how many of the millions, tens of millions of people. And that's technology. That's what we talk about with digital hospitality. That is the essence of storytelling. The fact that I'm sharing this with you is it made a profound impact on my little girl. And imagine all the other little girls and dads and moms that Spotify was able to do.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think she just got upgraded to the billionaire status after this tour. And so I think she was named like the first ethical billionaire ever. So Rev, kicking this over to you. Advice and who deserves an ovation?
It's hard to follow the answers that were just given. But me, I'm generally like the tactical person, like the how to do it. So I'm going to bring it to the tactic level because those were amazing strategies and great thoughts. My advice is manage your listings. If you're a restaurant, people go to Google and Yelp and Bing and Yahoo and Foursquare and Siri and Alexa and Instagram and TripAdvisor and all of those sites before they decide where to eat. And even if they've eaten with you before, they still go look at your hours of operation and what's on your menu. And the easiest, fastest, cheapest, most scalable way to affect guest acquisition is manage your listings. And I've been on that talk track for 10 years, and I'm not going to get off it until every restaurant does it.
Well, and hey, we believe that too. We actually just signed a partnership deal with Marquee because we love what they do. We believe in their tech, and there's someone who does that just exceptionally well. I know Shawn uses them as well.
Yeah, they're the gold standard of listings management, as I like to say.
We use them too.
Oh,
okay.
Us over here.
Small fact, we use them too.
There you go.
Oh.
Look at that. Go Marquee, go.
All right, now my Give An Ovation, again, tactical. I want everybody on the show and that's listening to this show to go to Partners Coffee and order coffee, even if you don't drink it. Buy it for a friend, a colleague, somebody you love. Order coffee from Partners. It's the most comprehensive digital buying process I've ever had. First of all, their site works easy. It's super great. It's a really smooth ordering experience. As restaurants, we should all strive to have a really smooth online ordering experience. But the amount of follow-up emails that I got, the confirmations, hey, we shipped your order today. Hey, it's on its way. Here's a link to track it. I have never felt more taken care of in a digital experience than ordering coffee from Partners. This happened to me 2 weeks ago. I participated in their Black Friday sale, but I was literally blown away by the digital hospitality and the ordering process of Partners Coffee. So if you want to go see what standard you should set for yourself as a restaurant, go order Partners Coffee. They did not endorse that.
Well, they probably soon will.
I mean, I'm saying that here, sitting here drinking Gregory's. So
yeah. Awesome. Well, CJ, what about you? Advice and ovation.
Okay, so as we all know, I don't come from the B space that everyone comes from. I come from the C space, the creative space. I'm an advertising and marketing guy. And being in the agency world, I think it's really important to mention the importance of flow. Just stay in the flow. So my advice is stay in the flow. Tap into everyone that is around you. Listen to what they have to share when it comes to their experiences. It's the wisdom that you can't purchase. So stay in the flow with your peers, and then also within your customers and your employees. If you're in that flow, that lets the juices of creativity flow and the endless possibilities of what it can be if you just apply yourself and motivate others. So that's my advice. My ovation goes to, I specifically chose a food company because I think we're always looking to peers and we want to kind of emulate the good things that we see out there. And we all have, the mission and vision that we transfer on to our internal teams. On both sides for us, Doghouse and then the absolute brand. I'm going to shout out to Chick-fil-A because it's not that they only offer amazing guest experience. It's what they set as the bar. They don't want to be your best restaurant experience today. They want to be your best service experience today. So that means your dry cleaning, your car wash. Just go down the list of the places you're going to, experience within your normal day, and they want to be the best, the thing that you remember in that day. And I think that's an amazing goal, and everyone should shoot for that.
Love that. And they do one thing that Chick-fil-A does is not just service, but man, do they nail consistency. I mean, it is the same exact experience no matter where I go, no matter if I'm going first thing in the morning, last thing at night, 5 minutes before closing, 2 minutes after opening, like during the busy time, it is just the food and the service, the consistency is out of this world. It's like near creepy.
And their tech's pretty solid too, if you really think about it.
Yeah, phenomenal, right?
Perfect combo, right? Of tech and people, right?
Yes.
It's there, it's both sides. And they did not endorse this or sponsor me to say that.
I just have one follow-up to that. Eat more beef.
Well, Kelly, wrapping up this podcast, what would be your advice and ovation?
Well, that's hard to follow what everybody said, but obviously I'm coming at it from a different perspective of, although I'm an operator at heart, from the tech perspective. And I think what was mentioned earlier is looking at how you can continue to leverage, I talk about it a lot, the science of hospitality with the art of hospitality, and using the science of the tech to get managers back on the floor, right? Get them out of the office, simplify the operation so they can do what they do best. And that's focusing on the staff and the guest on every single shift. And so that's what we push for. Humbly, I'm going to give the ovation. And again, because I come from the behind the scenes, and when I travel to New York, to our restaurants, right? And I think the consistency of the hospitality and taking our playbook of setting the table and bringing that to life every single day, I get amazed when I go into our restaurants. So I have to give credit to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I've never been into a Union Square Hospitality Group restaurant and not been just blown away every single time.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Well, oh my gosh, this has been just, if you would have told me 3 years ago that I would have had the privilege of being on this call with you five, I would have just like pinched myself because there's no way that could have ever happened. And I just feel so honored and so blessed. And so today, for having such a profound impact on Ovation, on our team, on me personally, on my family, today's ovation goes to each one of you. Kelly, Geoff, CJ, Rev, Shawn, just thank you so much for all that you do. Thank you for being incredible humans and for really pushing the industry forward. And thank you for joining me on this 250th celebration.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. And thank you for what you do.
Thank you for helping me recover. Yeah. I was to say, thank you for helping me recover lots of guests.
Yeah. And thank you for helping me know about our guests and creating that two-way dialogue. I mean, It's great to get one-way feedback, but the ability to be able to go back and forth, that's pleasant.
Thanks for joining us today. If you like this episode, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite place to listen. We're all about feedback here. Again, this episode was sponsored by Ovation, a 2-question SMS-based actionable guest feedback platform built for multi-unit restaurants. If you'd like to learn how we can help you measure and create a better guest experience, visit us at ovationup.com.